Well, good afternoon, everybody.
Hey
We've got,
everyone, thanks for
I'm
being
sure
here with
everybody's
us.
getting the word by now. Karen, what's going on?
Wow, I tell you what, Chris and I were not expecting this on a Friday afternoon that Barry Morphew has been indicted on first-degree murder charges in connection with his wife's murder from May of 2020, and he was arrested today in Gilbert, Arizona.
About an hour and a half ago.
Yes, I know. And so, boy, does Arizona have the cases here or what?
Yeah. What's
We
in the water?
expect, I know, it's crazy. So we expect, first of all, there's going to be a press conference today, this evening, 6 p.m. Mountain Time, I guess 5 p.m. Arizona time. It's going to be coming from Colorado, where the 12th District Judicial District Attorney, I may have said that wrong, is going to be, they're going to be having a press conference about this. We do expect that Barry Morphew will be extradited back to Colorado.
Yeah. Where do you think they're holding him on? Because he was arrested in Gilbert, Arizona.
Yeah.
So he's what, Maricopa?
Yeah, one of the Maricopa County jails. Yeah, exactly. There's a few different ones. He's somewhere in the system right now as we speak.
Yeah. His
So, and
booking photo's not up yet. So, but as soon as we get that, we'll post it on our community page.
yeah, we definitely will. And we actually have the grand jury indictment. We have a copy of the grand jury indictment that came back on Wednesday, just a couple days ago, June 18th. We have a copy of it, and we're going to go through it with you guys together so we can all find out the details here on, and just to refresh, let's just bring everybody up to speed. So Suzanne Morphew was last heard from the day before Mother's Day back May 9th of 2020. Her remains, her body was found in September 2023 in about 30 minutes away from her home. That's a county or two away. And so they've had this 12th judicial district has had the case. The DA, her name is Ann, middle initial E, Kelly. She has had this since Suzanne's remains were found in September of 2023. So we're just shy of 2 years on this piece of the case. But a lot of people believe this is very, very good news in terms of justice for Suzanne. The fact that Barry has been arrested, the grand jury has an indictment, and we're going to find out more at this press conference. But I'm really looking forward to diving into this document, Chris, with you and everybody here in chat.
Yep.
And let's see. Let's look at the evidence.
Yeah. So here we have the indictment. It's up right there on your screen. And we're going to go through this word for word, what Kelly is alleging in this particular grand jury presentation. Also, one other thing, Karen and I are also aware that we've heard information. It's not 100% confirmed yet, but his old defense attorney has stepped away, and that there's a gentleman who's another high profile guy in Colorado that's going to step in. And my understanding, based on some conversations with folks back there in Colorado, is that this guy's going to do it pro bono, specifically for the publicity. So let's see if that takes place. So here we are. This is the actual indictment, 2025 CR 128, and the first charge, count 1, murder in the first degree, which is the Colorado, basically the penal code 18-3-102, subsection 1A F1. Of the 2024-25 term of the 12th Judicial District Grand Jury in the year 2025, The 2024-25 grand jurors chosen, selected, and sworn in the name and by the authority of the people of the state of Colorado upon their oaths present the following described acts, all done contrary to the form of statutes in such case made and provided and against the peace and dignity of the people of the state of Colorado, as stated in the count hereto attached hereto. Ann E. Kelly, District Attorney for the 12th District of the state of Colorado, in the name and by the authority of the people of the state of Colorado, inform the court of the following offenses committed or tribunal in the 12th District of Colorado. Count 1, murder in the first degree after deliberation. On or about May 9th or May 10th, 2020, in a tribunal in the state of Colorado, Barry Morphew unlawfully, feloniously, after deliberation with the intent to cause the death of a person other than himself, caused the death of Suzanne Morphew in violation of section 18-3-102. Probable cause for count 1 is as follows. Okay, so it's a bam right to you. Here it comes. At 5:46 p.m. on May 10th, 2020, Mother's Day, Sunday, Suzanne Morphew was reported missing to police by her neighbor. The last known person to see her alive was her husband, Barry Morphew. Investigators responded to the Morphew residence at 19057 Puma Path near Salida, Colorado, to investigate the missing persons report. The house was locked, and Suzanne was not home. Her vehicle was in the garage. Her blank vehicle was in the garage. I'm assuming that's going to be the SUV. There were no signs of forced entry, and her bike was missing. Later that evening, her bike was located down a hillside off a dirt road between her house and Highway 50. The bike was located less than a mile from the Morphew home. On May 14, 2020, her bike helmet was located 10 meters off the side of the Highway 50, approximately 1.52 miles west of the Morphew home and approximately 0.84 miles west of where her bike was located. Barry Morphew was interviewed and told police that he set his alarm and woke up at 4:30 a.m. on May 10, 2020. He told police that he left at 5 a.m. on May 10, 2020 for a pre-planned trip, work trip in Broomfield, Colorado. According to Barry Morphew, Suzanne Morphew was still asleep in bed when he left the house at 5 a.m. on May 10, 2020. He told police he planned to ride her bike that day. Barry Morphew stated that upon arriving in Broomfield that morning, he checked into a hotel before leaving shortly after for the job site. He told police that he received a call around 5 p.m. on May 10, 2020 from his neighbors while physically at the Broomfield job site. The neighbor told Barry Morphew that his daughters were concerned because they could not reach Suzanne all day. Barry instructed the neighbors to check the house and specifically
Okay, so Chris just glitched out. He's going to come right back in, and we are going through the indictment for Barry Morphew. This is the new one. I see some people were asking, somebody asked in chat. So this indictment by the grand jury came out 2 days ago. Barry Morphew was arrested today. It is Friday, June 20th, and we are going through the indictment. And thank you all for being here too. Chris is getting back in. You guys know how tech is these days. Glitches every once in a while. We apologize, but we are back in. We are going through this indictment, and this is a different indictment than the first time Barry was arrested a few years back, also in connection with Suzanne's murder. So this is the brand new one.
You're going to have to hold the fork down for a minute because I'm just spinning over here.
Yeah, no worries, no worries.
And
So
my
again,
computer
we're
has
gonna,
locked up.
all
Okay,
right, we'll
wait,
get,
you know what? If you can hear me, that's fine. I'm gonna just turn
yeah,
off my camera
okay, yeah, that's fine.
because something's in my camera setting that's going ballistic.
Now, Chris, I think we're on page 2 here of the indictment, the current indictment. Is that right?
Yes, page
Okay.
2, correct.
Okay.
Now, let's see here. The neighbor told Barry Morphew that his daughters were concerned because they could not reach Suzanne all day. Barry instructed the neighbors to check the house and specifically to look for her bike. The neighbor reported to Barry that neither Suzanne nor her bike were at the house, and Barry then instructed them to call the sheriff. Police interviewed one of Barry's employees, scheduled to assist him with the Broomfield job. The employee told law enforcement that the employee and Barry were not planning to leave the Broomfield until the evening hours of May 10th, 2020. They were supposed to drive together because instead Barry left without telling the employee. Barry called the employee at approximately 11:18 a.m. and informed the employee that he had left without them. When the employee arrived in Broomfield on Sunday evening, the employee noticed that Barry Morphew had failed to bring the proper tools with him for the job, and necessary materials for the job had not yet arrived at the job site. That said, hang on for a minute. Okay. Hang on, let me try to fix this situation. Sorry, Karen.
Oh, that's
Sorry,
okay. All right.
guys.
So we're at the top of page 3, and while you're doing that, I'm just recapping for everybody. So what we're hearing in the indictment is we're back to the original set of facts in this case. We're back to May of 2020. We're back to the story that Barry told law enforcement about where he was and what happened when Suzanne was killed. Um, and we're also hearing not anything entirely new. All of this sounds so far like it was information we've already known, but of course we're going to get to the part here. It's only a 10-page indictment. We're only on page 3. We're going to get to the new information that law enforcement and authorities have since Suzanne's remains were found in remember that rural, dusty area back in September of 2023.
Yep.
So that's the
So,
part I'm looking forward to. But
yeah, so we're on page 3, top paragraph. Review of the cameras at the hotel and nearby businesses revealed that Barry Morphew was in the Broomfield area for approximately 9 hours and 45 minutes. Of those hours, he spent less than 1/2 hour at the job site. Now that's a new rewritten paragraph.
why don't you read that again? So we kind of key in on that. Say that
All right.
again, Chris.
Review of the cameras at the hotel and nearby businesses revealed that Barry Morphew was in the Broomfield area for approximately 9 hours and 45 minutes. Of those hours, he spent less than 1/2 hour at the job site. Instead, beside 2 brief visits to the job site area, electronic evidence and cameras from the businesses showed him driving around to various locations and discarding unknown items in separate trash cans. Hotel footage then showed Barry Morphew arriving back at the hotel room and remaining inside the room from approximately 12:34 p.m. to 5:55 p.m. Inconsistent with his statement to police, he was in the hotel and not at the job site when he received the call about his wife, Suzanne Morphew, being unresponsive and missing. In early interviews with Barry Morphew, he told law enforcement that his marriage to Suzanne Morphew was the best and that the two had a wonderful weekend together. When Barry was asked whether Suzanne would say anything different about their relationships, Barry stated no. Barry Morphew stated about his marriage to Suzanne was inconsistent with other witness accounts and evidence located. Specifically, investigators learned that Suzanne confided in people that she was unhappy in the marriage in the weeks and months leading to her disappearance. So this is the same information. It's just been kind of whoever the new DA is, they've restyled it. She discussed plans to divorce Barry Morphew with her close friend. She maintained documents, notes of problems in their relationship, recovered from electronic devices in the physical search of the Morphew home. Suzanne Morphew had been having a secret affair with an old acquaintance who lived out of state. She communicated with him daily over LinkedIn and WhatsApp. Suzanne's last known electronic message to anyone was to this person on May 9th, 2020 at 2:11, just 32 minutes before Barry Morphew returned to the home that day. An overall timeline of the week of Suzanne Morphew's disappearance showed that the disappearance coincided with her daughter's blank, the only other occupant of the Morphew residence, leaving on a pre-planned road trip out of state. Because of this, Suzanne Morphew and Barry Morphew expected to be alone at the residence starting on May 5th, 2020, until either late in the day on May 10th or into May 11th, 2020. Suzanne Morphew drove to Gunnison, Colorado on May 5th, 2020 to depart with her sister and friend on a planned road trip. After May 5th, 2020, Barry Morphew and Suzanne Morphew were alone at the house. A forensic download of Barry Morphew's cell phone revealed that Barry Morphew had deleted a text chain with Suzanne Morphew from which an image of a single text remained, a screenshot. Of this single text message was saved on Barry Morphew's phone on May 6, 2020. That image revealed a text from Suzanne that stated, "I'm done. I could care less what you're up to and have been for years. We just need to figure this out civilly." Wow. On May 11, 2020, authorities commenced a search of the Morphew residence that spanned several days. The state of the residence and vehicles shown no signs of break-ins or intruders. Even with no signs of a break-in or intruder, law enforcement collected items of potential evidence and DNA swabs. DNA analysis of the swab collected preceded several DNA profile mixtures consistent with what would be expected in the common areas of a home or a vehicle. That's the way to get around the sex offender DNA allegedly found in the car. That could be anybody that the car was taken to, i.e. service, could be service people at certain places, et cetera, et cetera. That's a well-written analysis here. The mixture profiles were processed through offender databases and were compared to the profiles of known individuals who may have been present in the vehicles or the residences, just like I said 30 seconds ago. The results did not lead to any stranger or intruder suspects. An expert in DNA analysis testified that law enforcement provided analysis with one of the partial profiles developed from the glove box of Suzanne Morphew vehicle in further investigation using a keyboard search. See, they're attacking this right away, right to the grand jury. They went right to the grand jury and said, look, there's going to be other DNA, but we have a reason. We have an answer for that. They never got a chance to put it on in trial, but when this may have actually been a brilliant move to give some time here, because now they're taking it head on. The DA here is taking it head on. Okay. A keyboard search. This allowed for additional comparisons to profiles and more databases with less stringent quality control standards than the National DNA Index System, i.e. CODIS. Okay. There's a whole bunch of other things that the FBI requires. And she's saying, hey, we did a little bit more than that, that allow us to go a little bit further. I had an expert testify that there were matches to outside database network nationwide. The term matched used by DNA analysis does not mean identical. A match only means that there were other profiles that could not be excluded at the limited number of loci available from the particular profile for comparison. The expert explained that she then compared the matches from those databases to the partial profile from the mixture of the glove box and excluded those of state profiles as not originating from the same contributor in all but 3 instances. Finally, the expert explained that just because the profiles from the databases matched at the limited loci available for comparison, it did not mean that any of the people from the out-of-state profiles were the same person that contributed to the partial profile to the mixture on the glove box, i.e., just because there's a partial DNA similarity, it's not a full DNA similarity. Meaning, if I touch something somewhere, somebody may also touch over me, or I may be consistent with some of other people's, similarity matches. But it doesn't mean there's an actual perpetrator there. Okay, an identical match says no question, like Brian Kober. The statistical identical match is a gazillion to 1. Ann Taylor is arguing, yeah, but there were 2 other DNAs inside of that house. Okay? But it does not explain how his DNA got on the snap. They are using the same logic in this particular situation with Suzanne. Law enforcement investigated those 3 partial matches obtained from the 3 separate out-of-state sources and found no connection to the case, i.e., there are going to be alibis. And they're going to be provable, confirmed alibis, not like Ann Taylor saying, well, he likes to ride around at 3 o'clock in the morning at the park. They went to those 3 individuals and they said, hey, your DNA is in this car. What's up? Or at least partial of some sort, a consistent match, but not an identical. How did this get there? And they explained probably where they were. Law enforcement located, page 4, a locked gun safe in the garage during the search of the Morphew residence. Inside the gun safe, law enforcement located a dart rifle or tranquilizer rifle positioned towards the front of the safe. Now, why is that important? Because that would be the last weapon placed into the safe. It's the closest to the door that's opened. So to them, they think that was out of touch. And DLR didn't look right. The package of darts, positioned towards the front of the safe. Law enforcement also found a package of Dart brand tranquilizers darts in the gun safe. The package of darts included capped hypodermic needles inside of them, which were designated to load the darts. Law enforcement found one of those needle caps in the dryer after the dryer's contents were removed. So they find the gun closest to the door as you're opening it, the first thing you grab. And now they're saying there are also darts in there, and one or at least something consistent with a cap for those darts is found in the dryer. That's not new information, but it's being retreaded here. We didn't know about the position of the rifling, I don't think.
And Chris, I don't think we knew that the darts were inside the gun safe in the home as well.
Okay, so that's new.
But we definitely knew that it was found in the dryer. That we've known.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. The shorts appeared consistent with the shorts Barry Morphew was seen on video wearing May 9th. So they found shorts. 2020, less than 1 hour before he returned to the Morphew residence. No tranquilizer formula was located during law enforcement's search of the home and vehicles. Police investigated numerous electronic devices, so they didn't find any BAM the night they were searching for it. Okay, so we know that there's going to be stuff in here probably about the BAM. And it looks like they may have gotten the source where he purchased it. Police investigated numerous electronic devices and Suzanne Morphew's social media accounts, searching, among other things, for proof of life, meaning was she engaged in social media? Was she sending people something? Was she talking to people? Because they wanted to know if she was alive or she was just, run away missing, because that was what, remember the alibi that Barry was given. Oh, she took off, etc. The investigation revealed that Suzanne Morphew had not communicated electronically with any living person after 2:11 p.m. on May 9th, 2020. So they've narrowed down the timeline 100% to 2:11 p.m. May 9th, 2020. Not really new, but they're getting closer and closer to the timeline here. Her last possible activity on an account protected by password access was 3:08 p.m., over 24 hours prior to her being reported missing. So they're going to question that Barry had access to her phone. Records showing her typical use of electronics and social media. So now they're going to give you in the victimology what is the behavioral pattern of Suzanne typically. Social media demonstrates that this was inconsistent with her typical pattern of life in the days leading up to her disappearance. This is why victimology is so important. Additionally, witnesses indicated they attempted to communicate with Suzanne Morphew throughout this time frame, but received no response from her. These witnesses indicated that her lack of response was out of the ordinary. And Karen, remember when we went down to where to the house and all that area, and we stood where the bike was, and et cetera. I mean, what was your impression when we were doing that?
There was no possible way that the bike could have gotten down on the story that Barry shared down that like rocky slope area near their home. All you have to do is go out there for about 5 minutes and take that story of the bike that Barry was serving up and looking at it yourself. And common sense was obviously would tell you no way that so didn't happen. So that bike story was concocted from the jump.
Yeah, and remember then there was also the lion story, the mountain lion story. Did you buy any of that when it was first sold?
As we like to say here on TIR, that was a loaf of soggy bread. And no, we did not buy that either.
One of the many reasons I love this girl. Barry Morphew's electronic devices were also analyzed. A download of the infotainment system on Barry Morphew's truck recovered telematic data showing the location and activity of his truck at certain times on May 9th and May 10th, 2020. A download of Barry's cell phone showed additional location information based on data from his cell phone. Barry Morphew returned to the Morphew residence at 2:43 on May 9th, 2020. The data did not show his phone or truck leaving the residence again until the morning of May 10th, 2020. And they're holding back that time right there. And that's interesting. Still page 4 down at the bottom, last paragraph, the download of Barry Morphew's cell phone registered events relating to his phone. An expert forensic analysis determined that some of these events were in fact Barry Morphew's phone being turned off during the time frame of May 9th into May 10th, 2020. Turning off a cellular device effectively disables ability to record location information. Specifically, the forensic analysis noted that Barry's phone downloaded showed it was turned off, and they probably download that from Celebrite, as everybody knows what Celebrite is by now. And it will show gaps. There's software, Celebrite software will show you the gaps when the phone was on and when the phone was off. So it looks like the digital footprint is going to play a very large role here in this trial going to be coming up here for Barry. Turning off blah, 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 1 minute, sorry. Specifically, the forensic analysis noted that Barry Morphew's phone downloaded showed it was turned off at 2:47 p.m. on May 9, 2020, only a few minutes after he arrived home at the residence where Suzanne Morphew sent her last electronic communications to anyone. At approximately 10:17 p.m. on May 9, 2020, the phone was turned back on. How convenient. Where have we heard that before? Asking for a friend in Idaho. Barry Morphew's cell phone was again turned off at 4:32 a.m. on May 10, 2020, prior to him leaving the residence on his trip to Broomfield, Colorado, and was not turned on again until 5:37 a.m. when location information showed him on the road already in the area of Johnson Village, Colorado. Testimony established that the time Barry Morphew turned off his phone corresponds to the time of significance in the case where location information was consequently unavailable. Page 5. Similarly, further analysis of the information from Barry Morphew's infotainment system, the telematics in his truck, showed an irregular gap in recorded activities. Specifically, from approximately 3:49 a.m. to approximately 8:10 a.m. on May 10, 2020, there is no recorded data registered on Barry's infotainment system, an indication of no truck activity. From telematics, inconsistent. Oh, you know why this is going to be important? It just hit me. Ooh.
Yeah, why?
Where they found her, he could be out of the truck burying her, and the truck's off. Ooh.
Interesting.
Ooh. Just thinking ahead. An indication of no truck activity from telematics is inconsistent with other facts developed from Barry Morphew's phone surveillance footage and Barry Morphew's statements about his activities on May 10, 2020. Specifically, telematics data show Barry Morphew arrived at his residence at 2:43 on May 9th. It then registered various other activities throughout the afternoon at the residence until it ceased at 9:52 p.m. The telematics data then showed activities resuming at 3:25 to 3:49 on May 10, 2020, at a GPS location consistent with his driveway. So he's loading her up. Barry Morphew reported to law enforcement that he was asleep during this time frame. From 3:49 to 8:10 a.m. on May 10th, the infotainment system or telematics did not register any data, despite the fact that Barry Morphew's cell phone indicated the device was in Johnson's Village. At 5:37 a.m. on the date, and Barry reported being in his truck traveling to Broomfield at that time. When recorded telematics data became available again, and the records from the infotainment system downloaded at 8:10 a.m. on May 10, 2020, corresponding GPS coordinates showed that Barry Morphew had already arrived in the area of Broomfield, Colorado. This gap in registered data is inconsistent with the pattern of the telematic data captured in the days and weeks leading up to the event. Phone records for both Suzanne Morphew and Barry Morphew were analyzed by expert investigators. The FBI CAS team analyzes phone records for both Barry and Suzanne Morphew to determine location information and device usage related to their cell phones. In Suzanne Morphew's phone records, there was no indication of any user-initiated activity after the time Barry Morphew returned home at 2:43 p.m. on May 9, 2020. Suzanne Morphew's cell phone device continued to connect through RTT data with the cell tower that services the Morphew home through the night of May 9th into the early morning hours, into the early morning of May 10th, 2020. So what this means is if he had that phone in the house, It may not necessarily have been hitting the tower right away. It may have been hitting his Wi-Fi, and that Wi-Fi was pinging to the tower. These automated data connections, however, were consistent with the tower reaching out to the phone to determine its location and not initiated by the user of the device. Meaning, if you're connected to Wi-Fi, it's pinging to the nearby tower, whether you're using it or not. That's what they're saying here. After 4:23 a.m. on May 10th, 2020, Suzanne's phone ceased to connect at all. Even again, just 8 minutes later, Barry Morphew's cell phone data showed his phone ceased to connect starting at 4:31 a.m., consistent with the cell phone download, showing it powered off at 4:32. Suzanne Morphew's cell phone never registered on any towers other than the tower consistent with the Morphew residence from the time Barry Morphew returned home around 2:43 p.m. on May 9th to the time it ceased activity altogether at 4:23 a.m. on May 10th, 2020. Despite searches for the device, Suzanne Morphew's cell phone was never found. Police interviewed people that knew Barry Morphew prior to his move from Indiana to Colorado on 2018. These witnesses told law enforcement that Barry Morphew was a deer farmer in Indiana. Several individuals told law enforcement that Barry Morphew used a specific tranquilizer called BAM. I know who this person is. I've talked to him many times. In fact, we've had dinner together. When Karen and I were in Indiana, if you've not seen the program we did about Suzanne and Barry and their life and how they fell into love, please watch that in our playlist. If you're new to our channel, we were on this from day one, and
we're gonna have that playlist after we end our live. We're gonna put a link to that playlist. You can go back and watch all the videos that we've done on this case. We went back to Indiana, where Suzanne and Barry lived, grew up, got married, and their story started, all the way to Salida, Colorado. So we've done extensive coverage of this case over the years. I can't believe it's been 5 years at this point. So anyway, at the end, please go binge watch our stuff just to get up to speed and refresh your memory on this case. It's been a bit. I know I'm going to have to do a little bit of that as well. But I think it's been worth the wait because it feels like justice is coming. Anyway, Chris, keep going. I didn't want to interrupt you.
No, you're fine. What did you think about their love story real fast? Because I think that would be real interesting from your perspective.
Yeah, and we probably said this in the video. They were from a small town in Indiana, and Barry was this high school jock, and she was a few years younger than him. And they had kind of this beginning flowering relationship that I really think started when Barry was a senior in high school, and this big deal baseball player with seemingly a bright future potentially. And they really reconnected in college. They both went to Purdue University, and they got married young, and they had their family. And but personalities are what they are. They don't change. I think my opinion, they ripen over the years. So let's just say somebody's a malignant narcissist. That behavior is only going to get worse over the years. It's sort of an American story of boy meets girl, and to meet in high school and start a relationship and get married and have kids and all that. So, but you got to go back and watch our video of I think there's a couple of videos on them in their early years. I think you guys will find it interesting.
Yeah, for sure. And Suzanne's, family grew up. They still own a root beer stand there, Jean's Root Beer.
Yeah, her brother does. Her brother Andy does.
Andy does. So several individuals, not just one, several individuals told law enforcement that Barry used a specific tranquilizer called BAM to sedate and transport deer on his deer farm. Barry Morphew admitted to using BAM in both Indiana and Colorado. Specifically, he admitted to using BAM in Colorado as recently as April of 2020, stating at the time he had tranquilized a deer from the breezeway of the Morphew residence. On September 22nd, 2023, human remains, okay, this is going to get good here, were found in and around a shallow clandestine graves in Saginaw County, Colorado, near Highway 17. I hope I pronounced that correctly. And if I didn't, no offense to you folks.
If somebody, those of you who are from Colorado, give us the pronunciation, because I'm going to say it wrong too, of Saguche. I know that's definitely wrong. County.
Saguche County. The remains were found a few hundred feet down a dirt road off Highway 17. This location was less than an hour south of the Morphew residence by main highway. So this is all new stuff from this point running down.
Yeah. And Chris, remember the autopsy results were very basic, what they released to the media. There was nothing in depth at the time. So this is the part that we're really looking for some more information.
Yep. Let's see here. The remains were found a few hundred feet down a dirt road off Highway 17. This location was less than an hour south of the Morphew residence by the main highway. The remains were determined, and by the way, this is the first time we're reading this too. So we're reading this with you and learning as we go here. The remains were determined to be those of Suzanne Morphew. The majority of her bones were recovered. Many of the bones were significantly bleached, i.e. they were exposed to the sun. Along with Suzanne's bones, law enforcement recovered a cancer portal and items of clothing, which we projected that was going to be the case, some of which were consistent with blight clothing. Suzanne was known to wear. There was no visible premortem trauma observed, i.e. that would be trauma at the time of death. Probably because the body was so decomposed, they could not significantly tell you exactly if there were like bruising or anything like that. Sometimes even, looking for dart wounds or anything like that. But because the body was so decomposed, you could not get those type of perimortem trauma. And so a board certified forensic anthropologist, which we talked about, a botanist. Why is that important? Because if you can collect some of the dead bugs around the body, you can determine the bug life. You can also the plant life around that body. You can remember we talked about, I had a case one time where it was a body dump like this, and we took the guy's car filter, and there was this, we called in a botanist. We also called in bug guys, and an entomologist, which is the next word here. And when the bug guys came in, they said, well, these types of bugs only hatch during these types of seasons and this time of year. And then the botanist says, and the pollens and the type of, plant life, vegetation, etc., that only blooms at these certain types of years and stuff. And so we had a suspect who said, hey, there was no way I was around there. And so we took his car filter, and when they tapped it out in the lab, they matched those pollens to the type of plants around where the victim was dropped. I hope they did this. How cool would that be? Because then there's going to be no way, if they took that car filter and then they have pollen inside that car filter that is around Suzanne's body. He can say all day long, I wasn't there, but then he's got to also explain, then how did this get into your car filter? That's a problem. So it's going to be fun to watch that piece of the puzzle come out. Maybe it is, maybe it won't. An entomologist all analyzed the remains, and several observations were noted. There was a distinct lack of bug activity. See, this is cool stuff right now, which is inconsistent with the remains having decomped at that location. So now they're indicating that body may have been moved. Wow. The clothing items lack evidence of decomp, which was inconsistent with Suzanne Morphew wearing bike clothing at the time of her decomposition. So that means he dressed her. Holy cow. Holy cow.
Wow.
I
Say that again, Chris. Go over that one more time.
The clothing items lacked evidence of decomposition, which was inconsistent with Suzanne Morphew wearing the bike clothes at the time of her decomp, i.e., there's no fluids, there's nothing on her clothing. So he dressed her. Holy crap, he may have killed her and then put her in the bike clothing.
Oh, wow.
Or moved her. We've got both things going on here. We've got a
Yeah,
lot going
let's
on.
try to be as clear as possible on our theory at this point.
Well, there's a distinctive lack of bug activity, meaning what happens to the human body is it melts. The body just melts and bugs come in, right? And there's what they call the body farm in Tennessee. If you ever want to see some amazing stuff, how this happens, there are videos online that show how the body decomps. Okay? Well, when the body decomps, remember that clothing is on the body. Okay. What they're saying here, the clothing items lacked evidence of decomposition. They're saying that body, okay, the clothing, it's not lining up, is what they're saying. It's not lining up. There was a distinct lack of bug activity, which was inconsistent with the remains having decomposition at that location, i.e., when they found the body, the type of bug activity you would expect, maggots and that kind of stuff, was inconsistent with the location where the body was, because you would find maggots underneath the body, you would find maggots on top of the body, and a whole bunch of other things that go on. I don't want to gross people out too much, okay? But they're saying it was inconsistent with the decomp at that location. The clothing items lacked evidence of decompensation, which was inconsistent with Suzanne wearing the bike clothes at the time her body decomposed. Additionally, there was a lack of animal predation on the bones, meaning when it's a body dump, you're going to get coyotes, you're going to get all kinds of squirrels, rabbits, or whatever. They're going to come in and they're going to start removing things away from the dump site. And that's why, you'll find bones in nests and all this other stuff, that the animals will come in and start pulling things away. Okay. There was a lack of animal predation on the bones, i.e., gnawing and that kind of stuff, which was only a very small amount of soft tissue found on a few of the bones. And there was no hair mass located. All these features would have been expected if this had been the original gravesite where decomposition occurred. They're saying she was moved. That's what they're saying.
So they're saying she was killed in one place. Was she buried at an unknown first site and then moved to this site? Is that what you're saying, Chris?
Look what the forensic anthropologist says in the next line. The forensic anthropologist opined that based on these factors, it was unlikely Suzanne decomposed from a fresh body to a skeleton at this location. So guess what, guys? There may be 3 locations, and they've only located 2. 1, the house, 2, this area where her bones were found.
Chris, let me just interrupt for a second. If there was a theory that if she was buried closer to home, and then at some point exhumed from that location and brought over to this location, that seems to be absolutely in line with what the forensic anthropologist reported.
Right. And what they're diplomatically saying here is she was killed somewhere else, probably stashed somewhere else, and ultimately ended up where they found her.
Wow.
That's what they're saying.
Wow.
And they have this botanist, they have a forensic anthropologist. Remember Roger Hegler and Jensen? Okay.
Yes.
That guy is amazing. He's world renowned. But that's what they're saying here. The botanist is saying it. Hey, we would have expected different type of bug activity if this was the original burial site, but it's not here. It's not consistent. The anthropologist, hey, we would have seen a lot more different things, but it's not consistent. The other folks are all features of the soft tissues. Okay. Hey guys, guess what? Meaning, the experts. There's not a lot of animal activity on these bones right here. In fact, we're even missing the hair from the body. That means the body decomped someplace else. The hair is there. That's where it is. And he moved the skeletal remains, or what was left, to this location. If that's the case, this is one sick puppy. Who is
this is a special kind of evil, in my
it is a special
opinion.
kind of evil. Yeah. The El Paso County Coroner's Office conducted an autopsy. In addition to the standard toxicological test, the coroner's office examined additional toxicology testing at the request of law enforcement for the presence of a chemical known as BAM. I'm not even going to try to pronounce this. It's BAM. The chief toxicologist tested Suzanne Morphew's bone marrow for the presence of BAM. All three of these individual chemicals that comprise BAM were present. Additionally, so now they're going to the cause of death. Additionally, the metabolite for whatever it is was present. Metabolite eliminate the possibility of postmortem BAM contamination. The metabolite's presence also indicated that her death was not immediately following BAM's exposure, because Suzanne Morphew's body had begun to metabolize the drug before she dies, i.e., she's alive. She is alive. He's either injected her, shot her with BAM or something, but she's suffering from the results of getting hit with animal tranquilizer. She is alive. So he's got time to do what he needs to do. Wow. The coroner's office determined cause of death and manner of death as follows: homicide by unspecific means in the settling of BAM intoxication. So it's an overdose of BAM. He's saying the manner of death. Okay. And or the cause of death, the manner of death is homicide. So he's saying she was shot with BAM and that caused her death, or given BAM or something. There's BAM in her bones. A pharmacological and medical doctor testified that the toxicological testing done to determine the presence of BAM in Suzanne Morphew's remains, about the chemical compound itself, and about the possible effects of the compounds in human. Okay, I have a thought here. Sorry. This is a negotiations point for the defense. We'll give you where the body was and the remainder of her remains. You give us a deal. Don't be surprised later on as we go on if that doesn't present itself at some point.
Interesting.
Yeah, they're going to go to Barry and say, "Look, Barry, if I was the case agent on this, and I had this information now, and I clarified all of this with the doctors, and the doctors say, yep, you're thinking correctly. That's right. She wasn't there, That not where she was found. She was in someplace other that we don't know about yet. Okay. The DA, I would go to the DA and say, look, if he gives us where he planted her, buried her first, okay, we need to get those remains back to their family. Because remember, she's got partial remains at the secondary site. So Suzanne is still technically out there. Okay, kind of like Emily. Okay, Emily Pike. Her remains, not all of her remains have been recovered yet. And Suzanne's the same way. Not all of her remains are recovered yet. And what they're saying in this new indictment is we know that. That is powerful. And they may use that against him to say, give us your wife's remains, the daughters, the sister, the brother, the family. Suzanne's family deserves this because they've had a funeral for her. But guess what? They're learning, like we learned today, probably, that there's more.
Chris, it's a solid theory. All I can think about are other folks behind bars at the current time. Dale Warner, Larry Maletti. They haven't given up anything. We don't know where Maya Maletti is, actually. So no, I'm just in my opinion, this type of personality, this, the husband as the suspect, I'm not going to be surprised if nothing is given up.
Totally agree. Yeah, no, legit observation, right? Legitimate. And you're right. It's up to him to make that decision whether or not he would want to play. So yeah, sure. Very valid point. Very valid point. The expert explained that the toxicological test done by the coroner's office met scientific standards of reliability and accuracy. He further testified that BAM was a chemical mixture of 3 specific compounds used as a tool for sedation of animals for medical treatment or movement. So basically, it freezes your body. Mm. That's what I'm learning about this drug.
That is so horrific. If we just take one moment and just try to slip ourselves in Suzanne's shoes in the last few moments of her life. Can you imagine? Your body is frozen, but your brain is still moving. Your brain isn't frozen. You know what I mean? That had to have been so horrifically scary for her. I mean, just horrifying. This is horrifying.
Yeah, it is. And I'm assuming you are conscious based on what the doctor just said there a little while ago. You're conscious of what's going on there. And I just saw a comment that says you have 13 to 17 minutes of sedation. Okay.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't know what the numbers are, but that's a very interesting comment that you put up there, and thank you so much. But imagine,
exactly, Anne. It's horrific.
Paralyzed yet conscious. Can you imagine?
With a crazed maniac, infuriated, and you're scared. You're by yourself. You're stuck in this giant home, all alone. Oh my gosh.
Well, and remember, we talked about she had her cancer port still in her.
Yes.
Okay? So let's say he sedates her with the dart. Okay.
Wow.
And now she is basically frozen, unable to move, and she's got that injection port. Why is that important? Because they wouldn't have put this in here unless this is a possibility. And we talked about this a while ago. He further testified that BAM is a chemical mixture of 3 specific compounds used as a tool for sedation or for sedating animals for medical treatment or movement. Back in 2020 and the years leading up to Suzanne Morphew's disappearance, BAM was sold only by one company in the United States and could only be obtained by prescription from a veterinarian. BAM must be administered into the bloodstream through intravenous or intramuscular injection to be effective as the skin and GI tract do not absorb it effectively. BAM does not cause sedation instantaneously, but takes several minutes to take effect. So if he had her, he could have injected into that cancer port this chemical with
Chris,
that needle. Go ahead.
if this goes to trial, this is going to be more of a medical case. I'm not saying completely, but we're going to have experts line up about BAM, its effects on humans, as they've already laid out. I'm not saying the digital data won't be important. Of course it will. But a lot of this will be a medical case, different than like a DNA experts make something a medical case. This one's going to be a little bit different. Again, if this goes to trial.
Yeah, and I mean, if we hear testimony from the experts that say, yes, that port could have been utilized. Okay.
Wow.
I mean, as an investigator, I'm thinking that. I mean, when we saw the cancer port, the injection port was, picked up at the crime scene where they found her remains. Immediately, that was one of the things we started talking about. Was, my gosh, did he use that to, to make her go immobile? Well, what the heck? Over. And now we hear in this for the first time that her clothing was not consistent, that her bicycle clothing wasn't consistent with the decomp process that they've discovered her in. So
yeah, that's huge. That's huge.
Oh, they're all sitting back. They're all sitting back going, holy crap. He redressed her, or he threw the clothing into the hole to make it look like she had decomped into the clothing, and it was inconsistent that way. Okay. That's beyond devious. That's another level. That's another level. I got to get Dr. Bricado to weigh in and tell us where he fits in the book here.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too.
BAM is designed not to be lethal and comes with reverse agents in the prescription kit.
That's even more horrific, Yeah,
BAM is not FDA approved for any human use. For that reason, there are no scientific studies available that address the possible effects and compound would have on humans. So Suzanne may be a first.
It's a poison. This is a poison.
Yeah.
It's a tranquilizer.
Testified that the compound would rather render the recipient wholly immobile, vulnerable, and unable to resist any constrictions to the recipient's ability to breathe.
Wow. So you're losing breath as you feel this. Your brain's alive, but your body's going paralyzed and suddenly you can't breathe. Oh my gosh, it's horrific.
It's like a drowning.
Oh, man.
Records were obtained for BAM prescriptions related to Barry Morphew. Records were also obtained for BAM prescriptions for all persons within the counties and adjacent counties to where Barry Morphew lived and where Suzanne Morphew's remains were located. Those records showed that Barry Morphew obtained and filled several prescriptions for BAM while living in Indiana. Barry Morphew's last purchase of BAM by prescription was in March of 2018. Barry obtained multiple kits that each contained multiple doses just a few months before the Morphews moved to Colorado. I don't know if you guys knew, but he also collected antlers, right? When animals would shed their antlers. And one of the things he made Suzanne do while moving to Colorado, and we have pictures of that in one of the other videos that we did, and I'm losing my screen again. Forgive me. My computer has decided to go berserk again. Hopefully I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Yeah. Yeah. Can you keep reading? Can you keep reading it, Chris, if you can hear me?
Yes.
Just a minor technical glitch. Okay.
Okie dokie. Sorry about that.
Does the document cut off like that for you? I think it
Yeah.
just continues on the other page. It looks like it was maybe copied.
Yeah, let me move here.
Trails
Okay.
off a bit.
Yep. In those Colorado Park and Wildlife and the National Park Service were the only entities that received prescriptions of BAM in those counties from 2017 through 2020. So, oops. Let's see here. Investigators learned that each of these government entities enforce tight regulations to monitor the BAM prescriptions, storage, and use. None of the BAM from those agencies was unaccounted for. Ultimately, the prescription records show that when Suzanne Morphew disappeared, only one private citizen living in the entire area of the state had access to BAM, Barry Morphew. That's the way to go out with a pow zoink boom. Okay. It's like,
Wow.
oh, by the way, there's only one person in that county in the state, ladies and gentlemen of the grand jury. And guess what? Drum roll, please.
Right. He's
It's
seated right over
Barry
there.
Morphew. He said, yeah, he'll be here in a minute. Do you find a true bill? For person of the 12th Judicial District, do hereby swear and affirm that each and every true bill returned in the indictment by the 2024-25 12th Judicial District Grand Jury was arrived at and deliberated, and with the assent and agreement to the existence of probable cause, at least 9 members
Of the
of
grand jury. Okay. Really interesting stuff. We can recap that. I also wanted to bring our oh, here we go. The $3 million cash only
cash
bail.
only. Cash
Okay.
only. Basically, what they're saying is, show me the money.
Yeah. Now, Chris, there's another group of documents along with this indictment. I sent you the link. It's in your email.
Okay.
And already, so let's just explain for a minute. So this is all out of Alamosa County. So let's explain. So originally, Chaffee County was the county that was investigating, lead agency of Suzanne's murder, because they lived in Chaffee County in a town called Salida, Colorado. Suzanne's remains were found in the next county over. And so it was a whole different, it's the 12th judicial DA instead of the 11th district, which was where it was in her home. And we can spend a whole nother program on the first go around with Barry's original indictment and arrest in Suzanne's murder. We can talk about that later. But I want to say that this county, some really interesting things are on those documents. And Chris, you've got them. We might be able to pull them up, but I think I just want to talk for a minute and give everybody a flavor of what is in those. So already with his arrest, Alamosa County is expecting a media circus. So there's 3 separate motions that have been filed along with this indictment. One of them is a gag order on the attorneys, both sides, whoever Barry's attorneys are going to be and the state's attorneys, in talking about the case. Yep, there it was. I think you just had it.
So let's pull this up.
Okay,
So
limiting
they're going to
pretrial.
pull an Ann Taylor in Colorado. That's what going.
Well, they're pulling a gag order day 1. Okay, day 1. So we can go through that. I think it's only a couple of pages, and
well, this is because of the who was the other DA that went on YouTube on Mike's channel?
Linda Stanley. Yeah, Linda Stanley. Right. She got disbarred. She got
he should have known better
run
than
out of town.
A DA onto a YouTube channel during an active murder case. I mean, that was just stupid. And so, but she now what this is, we'll call this, what was her name? Linda, what?
Linda Stanley.
We'll call this the Stanley rule, because this is directed at the DA. So extrajudicial statements by attorneys, a lawyer shall not make any extrajudicial statement that a reasonable person would expect to be disseminated by means of public communications. If the lawyer knows or reasonably should know that it will have a likelihood of prejudicing a criminal proceeding. So basically what they just said here, don't go on YouTube and put your stuff out there and don't take any invitations. And quite frankly, any YouTubers out there, you should know better than to do stuff like that. This is ridiculous. And then two, any lawyer, law firm, or legal representative, investigators of any firm, i.e., defense or prosecution, is what they're saying here, what the judge is going to say here. Associated with the prosecution or defense of this criminal matter shall not make or participate in making any statements that reasonable person would expect to be disseminated by any public communication, and that relates to the following because it is ordinarily likely to prejudicial a criminal proceeding. The character, reputation, or prior criminal record, including arrests, indictments of the accused, the possibility of a plea guilty to the offense charged or to a lesser offense. I find that's interesting as a bullet point based on what we just talked about. The existence of contents of any confessions, admissions. Did he confess? Whoa, that's another bullet point. Or statement given by the accused of the refusal or failure to make a statement. Excuse me. The performance or results of examinations or tests, or the refusal or failure to the accused or submit to examine or test, i.e., polygraph test. We want your blood. I'm not giving you my blood. No problem. We'll get a warrant. The identity, testimony, or credibility of prospective witnesses. Any opinions as to guilt or innocence of the accused, the evidence, or the merits of the case. Information that the lawyer knows or has reason to know would be inadmissible at trial. Section B, above, does not preclude a lawyer during such periods from announcing the name, age, residence. This is what the press conference is going to be about this afternoon. This is what you're going to hear at the press conference. What we just read, they won't, they're going to say there's an indictment, etc. The name, age, occupation, family status of the accused, information necessary to aid in the apprehension of the accused or to warn the public of any dangers the accused may present, the request for assistance in obtaining evidence, the identity of the victim of the crime, if permitted by law, the facts, time and place of arrest, resistance, pursuit, use of weapons, which is not the case. He was taken into custody in Gilbert, Arizona, thrown into the clink out in Arizona, and they're going to get an extradition warrant and bring him back to Colorado. I don't think he's going to have a problem fighting that. I think he'll waive. The identity, because Barry thinks he's innocent, right? 1,000%. He's innocent till proven guilty in a court of law. Okay. This is the second go round with a new DA. And they've added a little more evidence. The identity of investigating and arresting officers or agency leading at the time of seizure, a description of the physical evidence seized other than a confession, admission, or statement, otherwise what they call search incident to an arrest, anything you find on his person at his home. Remember, they were not hearing about it yet, but they took him into custody for murder. They probably did a warrant on his house in Arizona as well to see if he's collecting anything. We call those collectors. So if Barry's cut out newspaper articles about his defense, about his trial, about Suzanne, or if he has a copy of the civil case that he was going to file, are there any notes on it? Because it's no longer attorney-client privilege, because that lawsuit has been dismissed. All of that potentially could come in to support the evidence of the homicide of Suzanne. And all of that could come in to support evidence. So all of this stuff There could be evidence, good point, that, are there other shovels? Are there plans? Is there anything else on computers that they didn't get the first time that he may have now had on these computers the second time? Any phone information? Remember, this potentially could start all over again, where they could get another phone now that he's been arrested with and download that into Celebrite. And we'll hear about all those conversations. His daughters, they're not out of the woods. I hate to say it. I'm not going to talk about them, but if they have correspondence in there during, times when he thought he's fine, okay, all of that information could be downloaded again. And so this could start a whole new evidence chain into it. And that's what they're talking about here. Okay. They're saying, hey, if there is law enforcement, people involved in this investigation, don't you dare open your mouth. Keep it quiet. Girlfriends. That's a great point, Eve B. Does he remember the picture of him in, where was it, honey? Queens Creek or something?
Cave Creek, Arizona.
Cave Creek. And we went there, by the way. We went to the bar. We took you to the bar. We did a program on it. Right? Go check that one out. It's really interesting. He was definitely there, and he was living in that area there. And we think we're pretty sure we know where he was living. Okay. But it's interesting. He was picked up in Gilbert, which is. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, I just going back. So if you guys are just joining us, Chris is reading from the gag order that has already been put out there now this just covers the lawyers in this case. And I have two thoughts on this. Number one, in the first go around, let's call it Barry Morphew prosecution 1.0. Not only did you have Barry's attorneys putting out statements, holding press conferences, and talking freely about the case, but on the state side, you had Linda Stanley was the district attorney on this, and she was actually hauled in front of the ethics committee and ended up being disbarred. She can no longer practice law in the state of Colorado. She was an elected official. Obviously, she was not reelected, and she was basically drummed out of town because, in part, of this particular case and her behavior. It doesn't surprise me because it went to the state level of the ethics committee at the state level. It doesn't surprise me that Barry Morphew arrest 2.0, that the judiciary has a list of things that will occur in this particular case that never happened in the first go around. And this gag order is one of them. And again, I believe it's directed at the attorneys on both sides. It's very specific. Nobody will have a question as to what is allowed to be said and what isn't allowed to be said.
Yeah, because what was the punishment to Linda for going on?
She lost her license to practice law in Colorado.
That's how much power that's how much power social media has. Think about this and why it should be done very carefully and under ethics and knowing what you're doing.
Exactly.
There was a YouTuber that got a district attorney disbarred. Think about that. A district attorney in a very high profile case. This individual should have known better. He didn't. She came on the show. She sat there. She answered his questions and she was disbarred. And so now this order is coming out today telling the lawyers, don't you dare do that. Don't do this again. And he's talking to, they're going to talk, the court's going to come out and talk to Kelly. They're going to tell him straight up, don't you dare go there. Don't you dare go there. And during this selection of a jury or trial of this criminal matter, any lawyer or law firm associated with the prosecution or defense of this criminal matter shall not make or participate in making any extrajudicial statements that a reasonable person would expect to be disseminated by means of public communication that relates to the trial, parties, or issues in the trial or other matters that are reasonably likely to infer with a fair trial, except that he or she may quote from or refer without comment to the public records of the court in the case. Any lawyer or firm associated with the prosecution or defense of the criminal matter shall exercise reasonable care to prevent his employees and associates from making statements that would be prohibited from making under this order. Release of information by law enforcement agencies. And then he lays out what can be released. Number 3, disclosure by court personnel. They lay out what the court personnel can be released. So what they're trying to do here is stick any potential leaks in Barry Morphew's case. And it's so ordered by the court, Amanda C. Hopkins, Chief Judge, 12th District. So she's coming out right away playing hardball.
She definitely is. And she's not done. There's 2 other orders that we have that all relate to the media coverage of this, of all the hearings, the case, the hearings, everything leading up to presumably a trial. Well, that's where we're going with this. And right off the bat, she's got the rules laid out. We're going to go into them. I'm just going to touch on a couple things. So there's going to be limited media access for any of the coverage. So Alamosa County Justice Center, I'm looking at my notes, is the courthouse where this is going to be going on. They're preparing for a media circus. It's clear. And they've already come out with limits on media coverage. And we're going to go through this. So Alamosa County Justice Center is not a large place. We saw a little tiny bit of this, not exactly, but with Latah County, we saw this, right? One of the reasons for the move to Ada County for the Brian Koberger trial was because Latah County Courthouse was so small, they didn't have the ability to accommodate the public, the media, the attorneys, et cetera, et cetera. So we're getting a little bit of flavor on the same thing that we're told, look, this is going to go down in the Alamosa County Justice Center in Colorado. It's a small place. Not everyone's going to be able to get in. The chief judge for this is already saying there's going to be a pool camera, one pool camera. There's going to be limits on the media coming in to cover the pretrial hearings, everything, all the lead up. And I think that's really interesting that they've come out on day one out of the gate on all of this. So let's go through this because I think this one's pretty interesting as well.
So to your point, Karen, I mean, right away, the judges set standards for authorizing coverage. So they've laid out what the rules are going to be. Okay. And basically 1, 2, and 3. The 1 is about interference with the right to a fair trial. Likelihood 2, whether it's a reasonable likelihood expanded media coverage would unduly detract from the decorum and dignity of the court. Whether expanded media coverage would create adverse effects that would basically be past traditional media. That's social media. That one's directed specifically at social media. And after considering the above listed factors, the judge goes on to talk about limitations on expanded media coverage. Three spots will be reserved for media vehicles in the southwest corner. So to help everybody understand what's going on with this one.
Okay, so maybe scroll that back a little bit. What I find really interesting, again, they are preparing upfront and ahead of time for a media circus. This specific level of how is this going to go down for the media covering things at the courthouse? In my head, I've got Ada County because only when we were a month out of the trial for Brian Koberger, there was a meeting for all the media, social media, legacy media, court TV, etc. And that's where the court laid out, okay, Here's where the media trucks are going to, the details of how media is going to cover this. How many seats in the courtroom, Ada County's doing a lottery system for those seats. And it's usually not done the day that the defendant's arrested. So I find this really interesting. But again, we're in 2.0. Okay. We've already been down this road a few years back with the first time Barry Morphew was arrested and all that in the 11th Judicial District in Colorado. Now we're in the 12th Judicial District. Clearly, things are very different. And although I'm a journalist that really doesn't like a lot of limits imposed, because I feel that the First Amendment really is there to allow us to examine government trials, courts, and all that. I gotta say, I don't think this is a bad idea that on day one, the court's coming out saying, look, we're in control. We are going to provide coverage. We're going to let you have coverage, but here's the rules. And that really is going to cut down on the chaos, I think, because we don't typically see all this up front from the court when we're just starting this whole phase,
That's interesting.
pre-trial.
Honey, what is number 2? No more than 5 credential members. Explain
Okay,
what credential members.
So a credentialed member of the media is going to be somebody that works for and gets a paycheck from a company whose main job is to produce news. ABC News, Court TV, your local Fox affiliate, what have you, okay? Your local NBC affiliate. Those are credentialed members of the media. YouTubers are not credentials of the media. Even somebody like me, I'm a journalist. I'm a trained journalist, but because I'm a content creator, I work for myself. Okay, that's content creators do. So what they're doing is, it looks to me like they're trying to exclude the social media folks from having a seat in the courthouse for the deliberations. So it says no more than 5 credentialed members of the media should be allowed in the courtroom. Okay, but so one thing that is commonly done in a lot of these trials, I would say most of these trials, is a pool camera and sometimes a pool reporter. So, and it's typically the judge overseeing the case, maybe not the chief judge overseeing the whole courthouse. Okay, so so number 4 says priority will be given on a first come first served basis, both for seats in the courtroom and recording. That is exactly what Ada County is doing. However, Ada County is doing it online. So Ada County is doing it not for the public, I believe, but just for the media. You have to sign up like the day before. It's all done over email. And in that case, there's no difference given between a YouTube content creator and, let's say, Court TV. So in this case, for the Barry Morphew case here, they're saying that priority is going to be given first come first serve basis. Now they may do an online something similar to Ada County, but they may do it like Indiana did for the Richard Allen case, where you had to line up. If you were not in line, first in line that day, you were not going to get a seat in the courthouse because it was limited. So it's going to be interesting to see how all that plays out.
Now, number 5 here is interesting. It says all other members of the media may watch the proceedings via live streaming and may do so from the media room. However, there shall be no audio or video recording of the live stream. So does that mean it's not going to be live streamed, or it will be live streamed through the pool camera? But is the judge saying here you can't record it from the media room?
Here's what I think he's saying. So I think we saw this in the Lori Daybell trial. Scroll back up. I want to look at number 5, please. Okay. So in that case, the courts are now providing their own live stream in some cases. Although The Lori Daybell one is not a good example because it was a court TV live feed. I now realize I'm in the weeds here with this stuff. So if the court is providing a live stream like Ada County for the Brian Koberger case is going to be providing a live stream. That is, you're allowed to live stream it off that. But if you want to go back and show a clip, you have to get their permission. And sometimes they have to provide it for you. That's my read of this. I also believe there's going to be a pool camera in there. So let's continue reading on. I thought I saw that as
But
well.
if that pool camera, like court TV, YouTubers are going to be able to stream that pool camera.
Correct. Yes.
That's under the First Amendment, right?
Correct. So they're not saying there won't be a live stream or video of the proceedings. That's not what they're saying. So I think that's encouraging.
Okay. There shall be no video or audio recordings made of any part of the courthouse outside the single recording allowed in the courtroom, i.e.
That's standard. They don't want jurors getting picked up on camera. That's standard operating procedure for media covering trials.
Okay. Number 7, no video, what you just said, no minors, jurors, witnesses, etc. as court staff. Basically, I think they've learned, from the Murdaugh trial, obviously, with the court clerk, from the DA that went on YouTube at the request and invitation. That's another story. Number 8, no still photography of any kind of any person, probably within the courtroom. No added lighting, movies, blah, blah, blah. No added sound, got it. The only portion of proceeding may be audio, video recording or bond hearings. Also remember, there was another YouTuber, remember, on a Zoom that went live on the Zoom and the court heard the commentary. I think it was in the Morphew case.
Yeah, somebody had it muted out and was talking over the live stream that maybe 100 people were on, including the courtroom.
Right, touche.
Yeah, that was crazy.
That was crazy too, and I think that's that's what this order is basically. The judge is getting ahead of it, saying, "Hey, look, we've already gone down this road. We're not going to do this again. So I'm going to put strict rules in place." The only portion of the proceeding will be the pool camera, basically. Preliminary hearing, pretrial conference, blah, blah, blah. Except for any victim of impact statements. There shall be no recordings of any bench conferences in camera proceedings. That's obviously in the judge's chambers. Communications between the defendant and counsel. There should be no Zoom or close-ups made of any of the proceedings.
Yeah, that's a new thing that we're hearing a lot about. There's this idea that visually zooming in on a video camera on the defendant can somehow make this unfair at trial. Zooming in on every aspect of their face, their reaction. I always thought that kind of didn't make sense because think about it. It only matters what the jury sees, says, and deliberates on. The jury is watching the defendant the whole time. They're seeing everything in court. So does it matter that the people sitting at home viewing it don't get to see that? I don't know. Again, I see why they do it, and that's fine. I think the general attitude from media professionals, and I've known them, I've worked with them for many years, whether they're at the legacy media or court TV or any of these big outlets, they're all professionals. They want to go in, do their job. They don't want to, they're not arguing with the court or a judge. They want to set up their camera, get the shots, get the live stream going, do their job, shut down at the end of the day and leave. So these rules, I don't see media not abiding by them.
Okay. And now the judge gives specific conduct for media representatives, decorum and dignity of the court, basically. Equipment shall be positioned correctly, identifying marks, call letters, logos, i.e. NBC, Fox, Court TV, etc., shall be concealed on all equipment. Persons operating such equipment shall not wear clothing bearing any such identifying information. That's interesting. So they don't
That
want any
is.
logos in there from legacy media. No equipment used to provide expanded media coverage shall be placed in or removed from the courtroom while the court is in session, i.e., there's going to be no disruption. Members of the media may not use any cell phone, laptop, tablet, or any device with wireless capabilities within the courtroom. Whoa, they're going to keep out computers, cell phones, and laptops, i.e., you better bring a notebook. And members of the media may utilize any of these devices inside the media room, provided that such use is consistent with these rules on expanded media coverage, i.e., they're going to set up a whole new room that legacy media can go into, and they can use their phones, tablets, devices, etc., to watch the trial.
Right. So if they want to text or if they want to, post on X during the trial, they're going to have to do that from the media room and not from a seat inside the courtroom.
Yeah, this is interesting because I went on to find his booking photos recently, and booking photos are not available right now. And look at this, number 5. Media will comply with all requests, directions, or orders from the Alamosa County Sheriff's Department, Alamosa Police Department, Colorado State Patrol, Colorado Department of Security Administrator, or any other law enforcement or security personnel. So basically, you better follow the rules, is what the judge is saying. Okay, that's number 2. Let's go to number 3. Did I just read this?
No, I don't think you did.
Yeah, that's number 3. So these are 3 orders that just came out. If you're just joining us, the judge is getting ahead of this.
He is. And again, this is directed at the media. Scroll back up for a second. Standing order on decorum. Well, he's not talking about the public necessarily. It's really about the media and who's going to be covering this.
Yeah, and let's go to
Oh, right
number
there.
1.
Hang on. No, go back to page 1. Right there. It says the last paragraph. One more, go up a little bit more. Okay, it says all persons must recognize that Alamosa County Justice Center and the individual courtrooms and facilities are not large. Therefore, reasonable accommodation and coordination is necessary. I mean, we heard that a little bit too late with Leta County. That was one of the reasons it was the Brian Koberger trial was moved to Ada County. So, I mean, I feel like this is it's standard. We don't necessarily see this in all trials, this particular, decorum thing spelled out. A lot of times you see this on the court's website under media or media coverage. So they're just bringing this to the forefront. Again, clearly they want to get ahead of the media circus that's going to be surrounding this case. And this is another way that they're doing it.
With the exception of counsel and their staff, number 3 basically just says all parties shall strictly conform any public comment to the order limited pretrial publicity. With the exception of counsel and their staff in the court, my staff, with the exception outlined in the EMC, electronic devices in the courtroom. This includes cell phones. We just went through that. Smartwatch. Oh, wow, smartwatches too. This judge is cutting off smartwatches coming in because they can record.
That's right. But it says number 4, the court will live stream all proceedings that fall under the proceeding rule. Shall be no other live streaming of the proceedings. And except as is outlined in EMC, there shall be no audio or video recording of any of the proceedings, including recording of the live stream. So in other words, you can play the live stream when it's going on, but they don't want it recorded.
Fair enough. I think that's fair.
Yeah.
I like the way the judge is doing it. I like the way Hippler's doing it in Koberger. He shuts the stream off. I like the way the judge did it in Lori Vallow, where they put on their little headsets and he talked to him. This is a whole new way of doing things, by the way, folks, right?
Yeah. But look at how specific the court is in number 5. One row of the courtroom shall be reserved for the defendant's family members and one row reserved for media outlets. Okay. There will be adequate space reserved for the victims to attend court in person. Well, what about Suzanne's family? Those are the victims. All other space in the courtroom to attend the proceedings in person will be available on first come, first served. That's for the public. That is for the public who wants to come and watch.
Here's the key. Anyone else wishing to observe the proceedings may do so via live stream.
Yeah.
So we're going to be able to see it. We're going to be able to watch Bear, as Miss Linda says from It's a Crime. Love Miss Linda. She
awesome.
connected a lot of dots back in the
Yeah,
day.
she did.
And so all members of the public must remain quiet, blah, blah, blah. Basically standard courtroom stuff.
Yeah, standard stuff.
Standard stuff here. WebEx conferences. Yeah. This is where
it was. Yeah, that's where that YouTuber came out talking on this WebEx conference that maybe 100 of us were on at the time.
Yeah, I mean, they got to register.
And it was one of the pre-trial things. Go ahead.
There shall be no recording of any kind made of the proceeding of the WebEx. No interview shall be conducted on the grounds of the Alamosa, blah, 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 center, defendant designated. So basically, you got to go across the street, which they did the first time. They made everybody stand outside in the park. At the times, there were clear passages because that courtroom is pretty small. I mean, we've been there. And that parking lot was very small. Remember when we pulled up and they had a couple of the news trucks out there? It was pretty small.
Well, that was Chaffee County, so this one's a little different. Not much. It's probably about the same. Yeah. So there is going to be a press conference today at, I believe it's 6 p.m. Mountain Time, by the Alamosa County folks, by the 12th Judicial District Attorney, on Barry's arrest. So that's a little over an hour from now that they're planning on that.
So if you just got with us and you came in late, please do the rewatch. We just went over the indictment word for word on Barry's arrest. Count 1 murder in the first degree, where he's charged with causing the death of Suzanne Morphew, his wife. So let's continue to pray for justice for Suzanne and her family. And man, what a great day for justice. Let's see if the court can do their thing. And then we have to respect the jury, whatever that means. Just like in this last situation, the jury spoke. It's our responsibility as a civilized citizenry to respect the verdict of the jury. We may not agree with it. Trust me, I've been there a lot, but sometimes you just have to follow the rules. So Karen, last word, any concepts, thoughts on?
We're going to see if we're not expecting any big bombshells to come out at this press conference in about an hour from now. If they do, we'll come back on and we'll chat about it. It's going to be really interesting. We're now heading into this justice for Suzanne phase. We've got Barry arrested in Arizona. He's going to be extradited at some point back to Colorado. He'll be brought before the court where the charges will be formally made, and he will enter a formal plea. So it's going to be very interesting. And according to the information we have, the court in Alamosa County, Colorado, is going to be live streaming all of it. So plan to be with us. We would love to have you watch along with us on all the updates on our show on Sunday. This Sunday, please set your watch. Please be sure to join us at 8 p.m. Eastern. And we're going to have a great show for you on Sunday. So,
Yeah,
but
and if you haven't watched the playlist that we've done on the Suzanne Morphew case, please do that. We're always grateful, and hit that subscribe button. And of course, that thumb is what kicks the algorithm into high gear. So we're trying to hit 300,000. We're almost there. We're at 267 or whatever our number is.
I think we're at 227.
227.
Climbing and climbing.
I don't have time to keep up with it, but we're trying to hit 300. I know that for sure. So we love you guys. Thank you to our mods for being here.
Yes, thank you so much to our mods, especially Teresa and Laura. Thank you so much for being with us today. And Maui, Maui girl was in there too.
Yep.
At the very last minute. Thank you.
And Miss Sophia jumped in, but they're both, a little bit under the weather. I'm not sure, but we love them all, and we always mention them, and we're grateful for that. So for them.
We are.
All right, let's go to Hawaii. Put your seatbelts on. Barry Morphew's in custody, and we'll see where that bus is going to go. Talk to you in a bit. Aloha, everybody.
Hard working every day, I'm stressed out 24/7, babe. No timeouts, wish we could fly away. You and I go to our favorite place. Oh yeah, make special memories together. I'll be your company now and forever. I say we fly away, you and me, go to our favorite place. Feeling the sun on my face in Hawaii. With you, Hawaii. With you, Hawaii. With you, Hawaii. I need a summer breeze, some fresh air to put my mind at ease. No cares. You wanna come with me? Me and you go to our favorite tree. Are you ready now? We jump on a plane now. We're taking away. Yeah, we're taking away. Don't hesitate now. We're taking away. Yeah, we're taking away. We'll never come down. We're going away. Yeah, we're going away. You and me. Feeling the sun on my face in a while.